We've gone to some really exciting places recently. We do a lot of business travel. So almost every month we're going somewhere, and we have like retreats that we do with like our help. We have health coaches because that's what making good money allows you to do. It allows you to take care of yourself. So we have
Very
health
important.
coaches, very important. Those health retreats are twice a year in. So we absolutely love going to Mexico. We're going to Tulum again this year. We were in Tulum last year.
In 2019, after years working for other firms, Natalia opened her own firm, Zacharin Consulting. It's a firm that's dedicated to empowering businesses to understand their financial health and give clarity so they can significantly improve their bottom line. Using a blend of personal service and expertise, Zacharin Consulting's mission is to bring experience and knowledge to business owners in a meaningful way. So, Natalia, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. I know when we chatted earlier, you had some really cool insights. So let's just dive right in. Kind of give us some of your background. I know you got a really, really cool story. Well, maybe it wasn't cool at times, but
Yeah,
it was it's a very interesting story. So kind of give us some of your background.
sure. So I went through a divorce in 2012. I had not been working for 6 years, so that was a bit of a struggle. I finally landed a job after over a year of really struggling financially, and was there for 6 years. And towards the end of that 6 year period, I started seeing the writing on the wall that not only was I not going to be getting promoted, but I was they were trying to exit me out for various reasons. And so I was looking for other work, and it just so happened at that same time, I had just started dating someone who owned his own business. And not only did he own his own business, but he was actually a coach for another mastermind for accountants on how to start their own businesses and how to run a profitable accounting business. So we're sitting in a cafe and I'm struggling. My salary had been reduced down to poverty levels for the state of Maryland. So I was in poverty, single mom. I was 49 years old at the time. Everywhere that I tried to get a job, no one was biting. I wasn't even getting any interviews. It was pretty sad. So I thought, we're sitting in this cafe and he says, why don't you start your own business? And it had never been a consideration of mine before. And I thought, what can I do? I don't even know how to start my own business. And I think that's interesting because a lot of people start their own businesses because they have a passion or some kind of technical knowledge or expertise. I had none of that. So
Nice.
my passion was to survive at that moment. Um, but what was interesting was, so he said, why don't you start your own accounting firm? I started looking into it, or bookkeeping. And I thought, well, I'll just do that on the side just to make extra cash. And that's how it kind of started. And I remember as it was progressing and I got my first couple of clients, um, and I was able to work remotely somewhat with my job because I was a single mom and I asked for a little bit more flexibility. I remember he went to on a business trip and he invited me to go with him. And he said to me, if you build out your business remotely, we can travel everywhere together. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. I would like to do that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad.
It doesn't sound too bad. And that's kind of how it all started. And it just started morphing into more and more and more. Now, I don't want to make light of it. It was extremely challenging. I
Yes.
had to learn a completely new way of thinking, a new economy. Those who own their own businesses know that that's a different economy than being an employee. Um, but I was able to structure everything remotely before remote was even popular. So this was like 2019. And then COVID, of course, was the catalyst for the remote world, which helped a lot.
Right.
Yes,
Right. No, I like what you said earlier. You're not necessarily passionate about bookkeeping, but you're passionate about putting food on the table.
yes, yes. Now I'm passionate about what we're doing because I really, and I, if anybody's thinking about starting something or doing anything, you don't have to be passionate about it when you start. You learn the passion, you figure things out, and the passion becomes either the food that you can put on the table, the lifestyle that you can create for yourself and your family, or eventually you get good enough at what you're doing that it's not a struggle as much anymore, and you understand what value you're bringing. So the passion now is the value that we're bringing.
Right. And as you grow, you can automate it more.
Mhm.
And you are fully remote right now, correct?
We are fully remote. We actually have 10 employees that are all fully remote.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So,
That's the way. That is the way. It allows so much flexibility, even for people who don't necessarily travel. Obviously, a lot of the people who watch the show, they're permanently traveling or just that. But even if you don't travel a whole bunch, it's so much easier just to when the commute is from your kitchen to your office,
yeah,
that makes things a lot easier.
it does. It saves a lot of time. I don't have to really get dressed up. I do. I wear something nice on the top half. I'm actually wearing leggings today. Um, it takes me minutes to get ready instead of an hour. There's no commute, which is nice. There's a tremendous savings in time, energy, fuel, everything, parking. So that's a really big help. Also, because it's remote, and I find this with all my employees, we tend to actually work more and more impactful with what we do because it just takes a minute. Hey, after dinner, I had something I wanted to finish up, and you just go, your computer's right there and you just finish something up.
Right.
So they've actually, I feel like they're a lot more dedicated to do that. And everybody is able and willing, and they travel. They take their computers with them, and we've got all of these security features, the VPNs, and we have an IT service that handles all that for us to make sure that we're top notch in security, which is really
Yeah.
important when you're
Well,
not,
especially doing what you do.
yes, doing what we do and then not being on a private network. That's really important. And we have company computers at this point, but yeah, we could, accounting, you don't have to do that from the office. And honestly, I kind of felt that way even when I worked for someone. I was thinking, why are we all here?
Yeah,
I could do this from home.
it's kind of pointless. I had the same thing with my credit business. I wasn't, too terribly passionate about credit. I was just really good at it. And I knew how it could impact people because, I lost everything in the crash of '08 and I had to rebuild my own credit. So it just kind of sprouted from that. That's how I got into it because there was a need for it. I had a skill set and it was profitable. And it seemed, yeah, after a while for me, it got old, but I was remote the whole time. I started the business while I was in Mexico.
Yeah.
I chose to move back to the States for a little bit, but then I left the States again and moved abroad. So that kind of flexibility is, once you have it,
Hmm.
it's tough to go back to the cubicle life in the office. It's
I think it would be really tough. Um, as an employer, it also allows me to find the most talented people because I'm not stuck to one geographic location, but also people that are excellent want that flexibility. It's a huge upsell to work for us because it's remote and it's like who does not want to work remotely?
right, right. You can be anywhere in the world, and as long as you have good Wi-Fi and a laptop, you can perform your job. All of my employees, I think I had, let me see, one, two, three, four, five, six, I think about seven when I was at my largest with the credit repair business. And everybody was 100% remote,
Hmm.
100%. And they loved it. And you're right, it does give you the flexibility to just find the best person. You're not limited to a certain area. You're global,
Yes, yes, and we
which
do have a
is
couple
nice.
of global employees actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome. Where are they located?
So we have two employees, well, they're technically contractors out of the Philippines. We consider them teammates and employees, but they're technically contractors. From an acquisition, I bought a client list from another tax firm back a couple months ago, and they had those folks doing the bookkeeping already. And I just took them on, and they've been fantastic.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've had nothing but good luck with uh like you said, they're contractors in the Philippines, but
Yes.
I always consider them, closer than that. I consider them my employees, but it's the work that you can get and the level of employee that you can get is just out of this world. It's amazing.
It is. They're actually both CPAs, which I think is pretty incredible.
Oh, that's
Um,
nice.
yeah, yeah. So they're both very high level. They're really good, and they're really excited. They change their schedules to be in line with our staff meetings so that they can be part of the team. So they've been great. Yeah, it's become a really global economy. I know a lot of people that have folks either contractors or even team members, employees from all different countries of the world. The Ukraine, the India, Philippines, of course, is really popular. England, like anywhere you could possibly imagine. It's really become a global economy.
Yeah, I agree. And you can find fantastic employees worldwide. I did have a computer guy, not technically an employee, but he was working for us all the time with the website and everything. And he was in India. And then I had several in the Philippines. And the
Mhm.
level of experience and education and work ethic that you can
Yes,
find is just
exactly.
amazing. I loved it. I had nothing but good to say. Now, with your how do you typically find your workers? Like if somebody is building a business abroad and they want to kind of dip into that, how did you locate your employees?
So I do have an entire process. I would, even if we weren't remote, I would still have this process, to be honest, because I feel like it takes the emotion out of hiring. We're trying to find the best of the best. We want to be the best of the best. So there's actually a couple things like previous, prior to hiring that I do, and that I really highly recommend because I'm a fractional CFO for dozens of other companies, and this is what we talk about also. And this is what I see that works as a pattern across the board. So create an interviewing process. I read the book Who by Randall Street and Jeff Smart. It's a fantastic way to hire. It has a 3 interview process. And that's what we do. It also has like scorecards and specific questions to ask and why you're asking those questions. And the reason for 3 different interviews is because anyone can do amazing and put their best foot forward with one interview. It's harder to do that with a second interview, and then it becomes even more difficult with a third interview. And you're looking for consistencies. And a lot of the questions that you're asking between the 3 interviews are similar questions, but they're worded differently. So you're actually looking for patterns and anomalies.
Okay.
Um, and the book, it took me just a couple hours to read. I was super nervous when I wanted to do my very first interview ever, and I read the book that night. Like I just read the whole thing in one sitting because I was very nervous about interviewing the first person.
Right.
So having a process is really important. Also, understanding you should create your mission statement, your vision statement, and your core values because that really helps you on who you're looking for. So those soft skills, like what is their attitude like? Are they really a team player? Do they have integrity? Like whatever those important core values are for you, you really need to build those out before you start the process of looking for someone. So, build out your core values and mission and vision. Read that book, which helps you go through the process and not interview on an emotional level because sometimes you'll just connect with a person, right? So you
Right.
don't want to interview on an emotional level. Um, and then you have to sell your company. To get someone that's really good, you have to create an ad. I just use Indeed. That's how I find US based employees.
Okay.
I just use Indeed.com. But you have to write an ad that's exciting for someone who's a really good worker. So you have to sell yourself. Don't forget that you have to sell yourself as a company because the
Right.
A players want to know that they're interviewing and that they want to work for an A company.
Yeah. And it's funny how the potential employees will often check on you as well. I
Oh,
had
they
one
do.
guy, yeah, no, for sure. I had one guy that I interviewed, and I wasn't, I was kind of 50-50 on hiring. Traditionally, I do two. I'm going to check out that book because I traditionally do 2 interviews. But I was kind of on the fence. I was going to do a second interview, and then he like emailed me, and um, he didn't like some YouTube stuff that I had put out years ago. I can't even remember what it was. It wasn't political or anything crazy. He just didn't vibe with it. And he's like, oh, this isn't the right fit. I'm like, oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
It's got to be the right fit.
It does. And that's actually, I feel like you probably dodged a bullet because something wasn't aligned.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You've got to have people in your organization who align on your values. That is so important. And for I know a lot of people who are kind of solopreneurs and they're looking to kind of take that step up and start putting people in place and offloading some of that work. And like a virtual assistant to me is just absolutely golden.
Yes.
But as you keep going up, that becomes more and more critical. What you're talking about, that the screening process and the interview process to make sure that you're putting the right people on the bus.
Yes. And, hiring is a skill. No one's good at it at first. It takes a lot of practice. I feel like it's taken us a couple of years to get really a lot better at it. And we finally have an amazing team in place. It was a struggle for like the last 12 months. And as the owner, it falls back on you. So anything that, you have to take full responsibility if someone makes a mistake or does something. You have to take responsibility to the client. You have to take responsibility to your employee. Maybe it's a training issue. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. So everything falls back on you first. And we can kind of tell also who's working and who's not working. It's very obvious. At first, when I was having this issue and I was hiring people, and I was like, "What's going on?" I just like it doesn't feel like it's right. So there's some employees that are doing an amazing job and I have no issues and no questions about what's going on there. And then this other person, like there's something not quite right. Well, now I know what it is. They're just not working out. Either they're not working or they're not in the right position or they're not aligned for some reason. Something's not working out. And so that's a conversation or a conversation starter. I do believe in metrics. So I think that's really important for employees to understand what's expected of them and have KPIs and metrics set out for them. So that also helps because then they know what they're measured against.
Right.
And I tell my employees, I don't care when you're working, as long as you're punctual, your video always has to be on. That's a rule. You'll get terminated if your video is not on. So your video always has to be on. You have to be prepared, punctual, look professional, and obviously accuracy, integrity, all of that's really important too. But they know what's expected of them, not just very specifics according to the job, but even the soft skills of what's expected. And we do that every morning. Yeah.
That's critical. Like if your employees don't have goals or don't know exactly what's expected to them, they can't be expected to perform because you haven't laid out what you expect them to do.
Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting question. You talked about getting wrong employees. That happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not bad employees, but maybe it's just not a fit for whatever reason. It's important to identify that early. And I'm a big fan of working with the
Hmm.
employees, especially if they're having some issues, working through that. But once you identify clearly that that employee is not a fit
Hmm.
for whatever reason, you have to let them go.
Yeah.
And I remember for me, the first time I had to let an employee go, and I really liked her as a person. She was amazing. You know what I mean? But she just didn't fit the team.
Yeah.
Oh, it tore me up. It tore me up. It was one of the hardest things I've had to do.
It is really hard. It's about a 50% shot that someone's gonna not get fired, basically. And that's normal. That's actually not even high or low. That's normal. So expect that you're gonna have to learn the skill of firing people and the timeliness of it and not lingering about it. If it's not working out, it's not working out. I look at hiring and firing like I look at when you're dating. For instance, I feel like there are a lot of similarities. You're still dating people that are amazing humans and they have a lot to offer, but they're just not a good fit for you, and vice versa. And so that's the same way with in a company. I was not a good fit for the company I worked for when they were transitioning me out. I didn't know why. I was really sad about it. I put in a tremendous amount of effort and time, and I'm a very hard worker, so I was pretty upset. Um, but the universe had something else planned for me, and I definitely wasn't a good fit because look, I now have a business that's thriving.
Right.
So don't ever feel bad about transitioning someone out of your company or being transitioned out yourself, because that just means it's not a good fit. Uh, you are not doing anybody a favor by keeping them if no one's happy with them. I mean, they know,
Yeah.
they're not thriving, right?
And it's almost like, you know, again, not trying to say somebody's cancer, but it's almost like cutting cancer out because
Right.
a bad employee can ruin other good employees.
Yes, that's a really good point. I feel I'm a sap, like I'm overly empathetic. I don't have a very strong sense of like I don't like confrontation that much. Um, but when it comes to the business comes first. And so I want to protect the business and protect the clients and then protect the employees. So protecting the employees that are really loyal and working hard is super important to me. It trumps my feelings of letting people go that aren't a good fit. We had to let go a guy that had 3 kids that had the best personality. I was crushed. Um, but I found out that someone else was, doing, picking up the slack and doing some of that work, and it just wasn't working out. And it was kind of like a struggle to get things done sometimes, and it just wasn't working out. So I, it, like when you're terminating someone, it never works out the way you want to. I
No.
think that those are the most awkward moments every time. I've never gotten good at it. It's awkward every time for me.
Yeah. No, I remember the first time. It was absolutely horrible. I wasn't prepared for that. I had never thought that process through, never thought of it as a skill, never thought of it as something I would have to do.
Yeah.
And like you with this particular employee, she was an amazing human being.
Yes.
And, I really liked her as a person. She just wasn't a fit.
Hmm.
The good news is, like I had nothing bad to say about her. And she was like employed the next day because people saw how she worked with me and things like that. So
Yeah.
it worked out and I was super happy about that. But just that sitting down in the office, I was like, I didn't realize how tough that was going to be.
Yeah. And that's what I see is actually one of the downfalls of other business owners is they do not terminate fast enough. Like once you see it's not working out, you need to let them go. It's not fair to the rest of the team. Um,
Not fair to
and
them, not fair to the business, not fair to anybody.
not fair to anybody. Exactly. It's not fair to them either. Or if you lose a lot of your business, so your revenue goes down and you can't afford your employees, you really need to run the business as it is today and not as it will be in 6 months when you get back that revenue. I've seen businesses get crushed under the cost of payroll when they couldn't improve and increase their revenue fast enough. So you have to be ready for it. Sometimes you're going to be letting go of employees that did nothing wrong, but you have to protect the business first.
Right. You can't
Yeah.
pour from an empty cup.
Yes, exactly.
But you are speaking like a true CFO. What advice would you have for somebody who, most of my audience travels extensively, maybe lives on the road or live in other countries full time, wherever they're from, they switched, and a lot of them entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
When you're taking that step up, so put on your CFO hat again. At what point should somebody know that they're ready to bring on an employee?
Sure, that's actually a number.
I
So
figured it might be. I don't know it, but I figured you might.
yeah, that's actually a number, and it depends on whether you're a product or a service, restaurant. It depends on what type of business you are. Most employees that travel are going to be service-based businesses, I would imagine. Um,
Service-based or a
e-commerce.
lot of digital products, on e-commerce, yeah, those types of things. Some of them are going to, there's a lot of coaches,
Mhm.
coaches and things like that, but they need a big social media presence. So a lot of people elect to hire, somebody to help them with their social media and their marketing and things like that.
Yeah. So it doesn't include contractors. Now, you do want to make sure that your contractors are not going to be overly expensive. And I would say, so if you're, for instance, if you are doing video production and you're hiring people to actually edit the video for you, before that becomes an end product,
Like a
you want to make,
podcast.
yeah. So you want to make sure that whatever your gross revenue is, that your that's going to be considered your gross profit, whatever you're paying your video editors. You want to make sure that that your gross profit is going to be between 60 to 80%. That means that you can't pay them more than 20 to 40% of your revenue because you won't have enough money for everything else. So you need money for everything else, all your administrative costs, all your software costs, your own payroll, your taxes, being able to reinvest back in the business and take home profit, right?
Okay.
So for an employee, if you are a coach, for instance, that's a service-based business, coaching, marketing, any of those things, it's time to start hiring not when you're overworked and you can't possibly keep up. It's time to start hiring when you see that you're at $250,000 in gross revenue, inching towards $500,000, because you should consider that every employee, every full-time equivalent employee, and you're included in that as the owner, every full-time equivalent employee needs to bring in or needs to a revenue. You have to have enough revenue to sustain up 200,000, 250,000 in gross revenue. So as the owner, you need to make sure you also have enough sales. So you have to keep building the business and growing the business and making sure that you have a pipeline and making sure that you can sustain hiring some. That's the scariest thing, is hiring people and then suddenly realizing you don't have payroll. You can't make payroll. So
Yeah.
you have to get the sales thing in check, and then you have to make sure you're making enough money. So for instance, when I started in my second year of business, I suddenly realized I'm so overworked. I really need to hire someone. I don't have time for everything. And as an owner, you're wearing a million different hats. Um, and then I looked at my numbers and I thought, oh, shoot, I did something wrong because I can't afford to hire anybody.
Mhm.
So I was only about $250,000, $300,000 in gross revenue, and that is not enough to sustain another human being. So I doubled my price. And
Okay.
yeah, and then I could hire someone. I didn't double it necessarily for everybody that I had been working with, but all of my new sales, I doubled what I was quoting people. And then I slowly started increasing prices just in general. But you have to realize that it's not necessarily a sign that you have too much work to do, that that's the time that you should hire someone. You have to make sure you have enough revenue and sales to sustain that.
That can be probably a kind of fine balance, because if you're working and you're getting to the point where you're feeling overworked, you think that's automatically the time, but maybe it's not. You may have to be overworked for a while and get your revenue up
Yes.
before you consider bringing somebody on.
And that happens even when you terminate someone. That work will probably come back to you.
Hmm.
And there have been times where I was thinking, I am so overworked, I can't possibly do any more. And then next week I'm doing even more. And then the following week I'm doing even more. And thinking I must be doing everything wrong. But it wasn't that. It was not having the right people in the right seats or the right pricing. So it could be a pricing, could be having enough clients, could be pipeline, making sure that you have enough prospects to talk to. It could be that maybe what you're doing isn't efficient. You have to get rid of, like, don't do stuff that don't make you money.
Right,
So
right.
you have to make sure you're extremely efficient and everybody else is really efficient. It does teach you to be very efficient to get to that level. And you will feel, and it won't be just be in the beginning, it'll happen several times throughout the lifetime of your business, where you're going to feel that you have to power through. You're going to feel like you're dying and you're back to being completely overworked. And then you power through, you find the right people again, you get, the right mix of everything, and you move into a good scenario. We're in a really good place right now. In the beginning of this year, I was probably for 6 months in that position where I was wondering if I'm going to make it.
Right.
And it's, so you never know.
The life of being an entrepreneur, right? Now, one thing that might skew those numbers, again, most listeners to this podcast are traveling in other countries. So expenses are kind of low. Like for me, as an example,
Hmm.
I'm running my business, but I live in Mexico. My
Yes,
costs compared to living in the States are much lower
yes.
across the board. So those kinds of things, I think you just really have to be, maybe it is kind of a firm number if you're in the US, but that number can be somewhat flexible. The thing is, you just don't want to put your business at some sort of financial risk
Hmm.
by bringing on employees. You really have to consider all the different factors.
Yes,
Okay.
I would definitely consider it as a full-time equivalent employee, which is about 80,000 in salary. So if you're paying someone, 20,000 or 40,000, that could be 2 to 3 employees, depending on where you're hiring from. But I think that just because you live in a different area that might be less expensive, or your employees might be less expensive, still targeting or trying to target those numbers as best as you can gives you a lot more room for investing heavier into better things into the business, more people, better people, or better, like just making a higher percentage of profit is good for the business. First of all, it helps you to ride those difficult times. You want to make sure you have, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in your accounts. That allows you to do that. It allows you to set aside money for taxes. Um, we've actually invested in very high level benefits for our employees. So keeping in that range as best as we can, it allows us to offer 100% premium healthcare insurance for our employees, which almost no one does. 401k plus matching. Um, so it allows us to offer a much higher set of benefits. So I have enough profit to reinvest it back in the people, reinvest it back in the business. We have some extremely expensive softwares that we use. So our software that we use to record calls with all the transcripts and the information, we don't use like Fathom or Zoom. We use another software that's actually pretty expensive, but it is sweet, and it's so worth it because it protects the client, it protects our employees should anything happen or be said. And it also transcribes everything so we can look back and see what happened. And then we use it for sales training as well. But like it just allows you to do all those things. And then I have enough money left over to save for retirement. So I'm behind, right? I was on poverty levels not too long ago. I'm thinking about the fact that I'm 55 and I need to save money because I'm very behind the ball on retirement and everything that a lot of other people that didn't have financial issues prior,
Right.
you know. So
It's surprising how many people are actually in that position,
yes.
regardless. It's kind of shocking. And that's another reason that a lot of people are looking to move overseas, especially from the US and Canada, because prices are just insane. I just spent a week in Houston,
Uh-huh.
and I was shocked because I got an Airbnb, whatever, and then I went to the grocery store, and I didn't get much. It was just me, 6 days,
Yeah.
barely covered the bottom of my car. It was like $200. I'm like, what the hell is this? You
Yes.
know, I spend the same amount of money here. I have a cart full of stuff.
Yes.
So, that's another thing too is, that factors in that people have to pay attention to is the margins. Different businesses have different profit margins as well. Some
Yes.
people may have a little bit extra wiggle room in terms of their net
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to looking at their gross.
Yes. Yeah. It's really understanding your numbers. It's definitely a savings to in most places to live outside of the US. We were just in Croatia on a trip,
Hmm.
and we were like literally living like kings and queens. It was crazy. It's a little bit expensive to get there, but once you're there, the quality of food and the activities and the beauty surrounding you is pretty extraordinary and a lot less expensive than it is in the US. So, that's a very, I think, underrated place to go visit. It's pretty amazing. And I could see, I have a friend actually just recently moved to Slovenia. Um, has a beautiful house, and I think they even have a winery or something crazy like that.
There's so much out there. It's just when you start traveling now, and I know you've traveled extensively. And your work allows you to do that, which is amazing.
Mhm.
Where have your favorite places been overall?
Oh, we have so many new places to go. So first of all, I'm so lucky that that boyfriend from 5 years ago that told me about the business, he's now my fiance. And
Woohoo!
thank you. And he actually proposed in Croatia. Um,
Ah, very
yeah,
cool.
he wanted to make it very special. He loves to travel, so we're really aligned with He is a powerhouse in building his business. I'm also building my business, so that puts us really in alignment and understand each other very well. So like when we have something planned and someone has to work, there's no hard feelings. Like I was literally running payroll on the beach, on Rialto Beach, in Washington State because there was a problem. It's like on my phone running payroll on the beach while we were trying to hike. So like,
Reality is beautiful.
yeah, because it is. So, but we really love to travel. We've gone to some really exciting places recently. We do a lot of business travel. So almost every month we're going somewhere, and we have like retreats that we do with like our health. We have health coaches because that's what making good money allows you to do. It allows you to take care of yourself. So we have
Very
health
important.
coaches, very important. Those health retreats are twice a year in, so we absolutely love going to Mexico. We're going to Tulum again this year. We were in Tulum last year. Really extraordinary place. I've been to Playa del Carmen. Really loved it. Cancun. So I really, really love Mexico. Just a fun place to
That
be.
whole area, the whole Riviera Maya is amazing. That was my home base. Well, it's been my home base off and on for probably about 7 out of the last 11 years. It's Playa del Carmen.
I'm like,
Amazing.
how can you not love it? You wake up in the morning and they serve you the most amazingly fresh and delicious fruit that you've ever had in your entire life. You know,
Hmm.
and you feel like you just feel wonderful the whole time you're there because the food is really fresh and really delicious and everybody's so kind. It's just it's a great place. It isn't
Yeah.
the safest, but no place is. You'd have to be very aware, but it's a fantastically beautiful place. And
Again, again, that's the safety issue. To counter that, Playa, Tulum. I'm not going to speak on Cancun's. Cancun's a different animal, but as you get further down into the Riviera Maya, Playa del Carmen, Cancun, I'm not saying it is, without crime, but I have personal experience. I've been in that area, lived there for, like I said, about 7 years. Never had an issue. And to me, it's always, don't hang out in bad areas of town. Don't
yes,
deal drugs. Don't sell drugs. Don't mule drugs. And you're probably going to be fine.
exactly. And actually, I have a friend that lives in Mexico, and he said, don't deal drugs, don't buy drugs, and don't do drugs, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. You start messing up around with the wrong
Yeah,
people, of course you're going to have problems. But if you're just living your life and you're obviously paying attention, you're not flashing jewelry when you're out in the town,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, don't be stupid.
yes.
But it's safe and it's really funny. I tell this story all the time because I've got friends in Mexico. I've spent time in Colombia, and everybody in Colombia is like, "How do you live in Mexico? It's so dangerous." And then all my Mexican friends are like, "You're going to Colombia? Dude, I wouldn't do that. It's so dangerous."
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I mean, don't you, like you said, don't flash things around, hold things close to you so you don't get pickpocketed, which I don't think really is an issue in Mexico. That's more of actually an issue in Europe,
Europe.
South America,
Yeah.
the pickpockets. But just to be really aware and don't do stupid things and stay like, don't go into bad areas. Just be
Yeah.
aware. So
Yeah.
so Mexico is one of my favorite. Croatia, I just mentioned Croatia. We took a cruise on like a beautiful, I guess it was kind of like a little yacht or something like that. I don't even know. It's a beautiful boat. And along the Adriatic Sea from island to island, basically went island hopping. The water is this crystalline blue. It's extremely highly salinated, so it's very buoyant. We swam into a cave where the water looked electric blue in the cave. It was just fabulous. So now I can say I went yachting on the Dalmatian coast. So that's not fancy. I love Portugal. I think Portugal is one of my absolute favorite places. Also, was not on my radar. I went with a bunch of friends several years ago. Um, Very inexpensive once you're there. At least it was the last time I was there. Delicious food and the most friendly, amazing people that I've ever met.
Wow.
Loved it. Yeah.
I've not been to Portugal. I spent time in the south of Spain, which was amazing.
Yes.
Malaga and Marbella. That was amazing. I never made it to Portugal. So next time I'm back in that area, I'll definitely stop in,
Yeah.
check it
Yeah.
out.
I'm really excited to just start traveling a lot more. I traveled a lot as a kid. My parents believed in travel as a teaching and learning tool for us as we were growing up, and they were
Your
world
parents
travelers.
were smart.
Yes. So, and we weren't rich, we weren't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but they saved money and didn't spend somewhere else because they wanted to travel. So we've been to, Egypt and to Jerusalem and to all over Europe and all over South America. I haven't made it to the Middle East yet or to India, so those are definitely on the list.
Yeah, I've been in India. I spent some time in Qatar
Oh wow.
and not as much as I wanted. I was there for kind of a long layover, so I got to explore some, but not really. And then where else in the Middle East? Oh, Abu Dhabi.
Oh, very cool.
Abu Dhabi was cool. Again, it was a couple of days. It wasn't a super extensive thing, but it was. I really loved it, and I was thinking I gotta go back. I'm a big fight fan, and a lot of times they'll have on Yas Island they have the UFC events out there in Abu Dhabi.
Oh wow.
And there was no fights going on when I was there, but I was sitting at this restaurant overlooking the bay, looking over at the Italia Arena where they hold the fights. It was really cool.
Totally different, but very cool also. So I love opera. My grandmother was an opera singer, and I got to watch an opera in the ruins of Rome. I don't remember which Roman ruins they were, but they had an entire opera. They even brought like live animals on stage. Um, but the voices was so amazing. I think I was 14 or 15 years old. That was a really long time ago. And I still remember it. It was an incredible experience. And that's what life is, right? Life is just experience.
Yeah,
So,
it's experiences, but
yeah,
that had to be magical.
it's magical. Yeah. I can't actually finish the conversation of favorite places without mentioning Paris. I absolutely love Paris. I love art, museums, history, the architecture, fashion, just watching people watching. I love sitting on the Champs-Élysées. Oh, I love champagne. Like I love stopping and having, I call it a champagne snack. Like every couple hours, like it's time for a snack. Stopping and having a glass of champagne, which is
And
everywhere.
wine and champagne are so cheap there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised. I love Paris as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. The I stayed in an Airbnb there, and it was literally, I think, 3 blocks from the Arc de Triomphe,
Oh, very cool.
right on the Champs-Élysées. It was absolutely. I mean, the Airbnb itself, you had to go through the back of this restaurant and then through this door, and then like there was an elevator, but it didn't work. So there were like it was on the seventh floor. So there's tiny little winding stairway going up to the seventh floor. I'm trying to drag suitcase out and a tiny little place, but then once we got out, we're like, we found it finally and
Yeah,
struggled getting everything up. We got out and we're like, we are right here.
that's incredible.
Yeah, it was so awesome.
Yeah, we had a little hotel and it was actually kind of similar. I don't think that they had an elevator. We were like on the third floor. Also like cursing as we're trying to drag our suitcases up. I went with my daughter. I figured, a girl needs to get to Paris at least once in her life. So I brought my daughter with me. And we could see the Eiffel Tower from our window. A very small, tiny little hotel. They had like, it's kind of like a bed and breakfast, I guess. But again, same experience where the room was really tight. It was very clean. It was really tight. Like you could barely get around the bed.
Yeah.
There's like no floor space and no elevator. But it was an amazing experience. We were right there. And then we would just walk out our door and jump on the metro and go anywhere.
Ah,
It was pretty incredible. Yeah.
yeah, I loved Paris. The architecture is
Yeah.
amazing. Everything. Now, let me ask you this. This is a funny thing about Paris. When I had never been there before, and uh, even like I got buddies in Vegas who are from France. So I
Hmm.
was like, "Hey, what should I do?" And they're like, "Hey, they gave me some tips, but they're like, "Hey, I'm just gonna apologize in advance. French people are freaking rude. You're gonna hate them." And I was like, and then everybody's telling me this, so
Hmm.
I'm almost all defensive getting off the plane in Paris. I'm like, I'm ready to go. I had the most opposite experience. Everybody was amazing. Nobody was rude. People were helpful. They were polite. My Paris experience was
Yeah.
fantastic.
I never had anybody rude to us in Paris. In fact, I felt the opposite.
Yeah.
Um, They were extremely kind, extremely helpful, really wanted us to have a good experience. We would ask questions. We had one place where we went back 3 times to eat. It was right next to the Notre Dame. And see, I can't even pronounce things in French, so and they still didn't make fun of me or make me feel bad. And but we went to this one cafe, and the waiter that was there saw us, and every time we came back, he wanted to wait on us. Like he would push all the other waiters out of the way. So, um, but it was, and that was like our experience the whole time. Everybody was super kind and helpful. I haven't, yeah, I was expecting. In fact, my mom was like telling me how everybody's so rude in Paris, and we didn't have anybody be rude to us at all.
Yeah.
Same experience, yeah.
I thought maybe my experience was isolated and just lucked out, but yeah, I've heard that from some other people too. And that's, I don't know, Paris gets a bad rap for everybody being so rude, but
I
I
think so.
experienced none of that.
Yeah. But I think if you're like excited and really want to connect with people and you communicate well and you smile, I think people sense that. Like I don't have I haven't had people be rude to me, or maybe I just I'm oblivious. I don't know. I don't even feel that way in New York City.
Right.
You know.
New York City is a whole different animal, but all right. So one last question and you work with a lot of business owners, so I think might be right in your wheelhouse. But if somebody is looking to get out of the US, out of Canada, out of the UK, someplace like that, and they're looking to move abroad and they have a small business, what kind of advice would you give them for, kind of breaking free, but making sure they're doing it correctly, especially
So
from a financial standpoint? That's your area of expertise. So,
from a financial standpoint, I would definitely say they should definitely speak with their tax accountant because there are going to be tax repercussions. And depending on how long you live somewhere, you might mitigate some of those taxes, or if you move somewhere. So you do want to talk to someone because the United States wants their cut, and it
mhm.
might, like, if you move from the United States to another country, you're probably going to pay a pretty large sum of taxes to do so, to for that one time, usually. If you are still considered a United States citizen and you're just traveling back and forth, there might be some tax repercussions, or there might not be any if you're not living somewhere else. So I would talk to your tax accountant first because there are a lot of
that
rules. Not familiar with all of them, but yeah, definitely do that.
and speak, my advice with that to go along with what you said would be speak to somebody who knows what international taxes look like
Yes,
and how to structure it. Because if you do it wrong, you could end up with a tax liability in two countries.
yes.
If you do it right, you can end up essentially paying no taxes unless you're making a huge amount of money. Because if you're living outside the US for a certain amount of time per year, long story short, you can be exempt for about your first 120,000 in personal income.
Hmm.
And if you spend a little bit of money, you can set up a corporation in a country that has a little, 0 or maybe 1 or 2% tax rate, flow it from your company or LLC or corporation in the US to that one, and then have that company cover your travel, your lodging, and you can actually, it's kind of double-edged sword. You could actually end up being on the hook for a lot, or you can structure it so you basically don't pay any, but
Yeah,
you got to know what you're doing.
you have to know what you're doing. Definitely find someone that is familiar with that and do it in advance, not
Yeah.
like the month before you decide to move. Like it usually, like you might even need a year before you move. Like the as soon as you know that you have this opportunity, start seeking out the right advice, and that would be your tax accountant. Like you said, someone that specializes in international tax, and also your lawyer to figure out legally, like what are the liabilities. So I make sure to just do as much research as possible and do it as far in advance as possible because a lot of the taxes you can mitigate. The reason why people don't or can't is because they waited too long and it's too late and they missed that deadline or they missed being able to do something. Because sometimes like for instance, I know if you want to move from one state to a state that doesn't have income tax, you have to live there and prove that you've lived there for 12 months. So, like if you're going to sell your business and you're like, hey, I don't want to pay income tax, I want to move to Florida, you need to do that well in advance,
Yeah.
and pass all those tests from the IRS.
Yep. Yep. No, that's the thing when I moved from Vegas to Phoenix.
Hmm.
Arizona's tax rate isn't horrible, but
Hmm.
it's zero like Nevada.
Yes.
And I was like, who do I have to write a check to? Nah.
Yes.
So like I moved my residence right back to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So right now, when I took off, I'm like, okay, that's the first step. And then depending on how long I'm gonna be gone and what I'm gonna do. But yeah, that then you can start setting up the structures and doing it correctly because it's just fantastic. But these are the mechanisms that wealthy people do because it's not how much you make, it's really how much you keep, right?
Yes. It's how much you keep, and it's what information you will learn, and doing research on your own, and finding the people that are capable and understand the law.
Yeah, do it legally because Uncle
Yes.
Sam wants his cut no matter what. So,
Yes.
all right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Natalia. That was amazing. And I think that's some really good information, especially for, the business owners who are traveling or maybe looking to expand,
Yes.
bringing on employees and things like that. That's really good info.
The more you expand, the more possibilities you have of you becoming, you're going to be transitioning out from being the employee of the company, the business owner, and more into a shareholder role. And I think that everybody should read the book Built to Sell. That's about creating a sellable asset as a business. But even if you don't want to sell your business, or you don't think your business is sellable, it tells you how to create a very functional, healthy business. Because that's what a sellable asset is. It's a functional, healthy business, and that gives a
Okay,
lot of ideas to structure it.
what was that book?
Called Built to Sell by
Okay.
John Warrillow.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. I haven't heard of that one. But that's also really good advice too, because most people don't start their business with an exit strategy in mind.
Yeah. Well, you're going to exit, so you might as well have a strategy. One way or another, you're going to exit. You're either
Right.
going to stop, going to die, whatever. Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever. So yeah, no, that's good. And what was that other book? It was who?
Who by
Okay.
Jeff Smart, that's Jeff Geoff, and Randall Street.
Okay.
Yeah, those are
Okay.
two really, really good books. As a business owner, everybody should read those two.
I'll be jumping on Audible right after we get off this
Yeah.
podcast. So, all right. Thanks a lot, Natalia. I really appreciate it. And if anybody is looking to reach out to her, her information will be in the notes. Appreciate you tuning in. And next episode will be coming out soon.